Hello.
Morning.
Good morning. So, hello everyone. I'm Lorian Waldron, and today I am so excited to have an incredibly special guest join us to share a wealth of knowledge. Dr.Claudia Welch is a doctor of Oriental medicine, an Ayurveda practitioner and educator, international speaker, author of several books, including Balance Your Hormones, Balance Your Life, and an overall incredibly wealthy woman of knowledge with regards to women's health. And so welcome, Dr. Claudia Welch. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and thanks everybody else for being here.
So
I wonder if we could start with just a couple minutes of quiet. You and I talked about just before starting, and so everybody, it's just something I like to do just to kind of get present and leave what I was doing behind and be here together in this good company. So just for a couple minutes. All right, I'm ready when you are.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for that shared silent space. So fitting for exactly what we're here for today. Thank you. So today, the reason why we're here is because I have just fallen in love with your work, with Claudia's work, and through reading your book, Balance Your Hormones, Balance Your Life, and also attending Claudia's workshops, her workshop that she ran recently in Byron Bay, I was just so completely moved by Claudia's message and felt called to contribute to the sharing of that message for women around the world. So there are a couple of key things that I've taken away from your book as well as from your workshop. And one of the key things, one of the most profound things I loved was how you talked about the title of your book, which is Balance Your Hormones, Balance Your Life, and how originally you actually wanted to call it Balance Your Life, Balance Your Hormones, and your whole body of work, and how really it's about life balance and just dispelling that for women, this hormonal confusion. And so what I wanted to begin.
Yeah. Okay, we're interrupting each other, but can I tell that little story?
Please.
So, all right. So, I wrote the book. I had a wonderful editor, Renee, and she let me write the whole inside of the book, but it was her job to write the title. And she came up with Balance Your Hormones, Balance Your Life, and she ran it by me. And I said, well, it's great, but it's backwards, because it sort of insinuates that if you balance your hormones, then your life will balance. And it's exactly the opposite. And the whole book is about how opposite it is, that if we balance our lives, then the hormones will come back into balance, because they don't go out of balance in a vacuum for no reason. They respond to our experiences and our thoughts and our emotions. Thought creates biology for us. And And so she said, "Oh, that's all good. That's very true, but we're going to do it this way because it'll sell more products." And I thought, all right, well, you get the title. That's fair. You get the title.
Yeah.
So that's quite true. And the other thing, I know we haven't even started here, but I'm somehow moved to just share before we start really getting into this. I mean, I'm even tearing up a little bit, but how I've been having these conversations with beautiful women like you and around the world for a long time now, 20 years plus, and saying a lot of the same things. And you'd think I would get tired of saying the same things, talking about the same things, having the same conversations, but somehow it's just, if anything, becoming more and more meaningful to have these conversations. There's something about having these conversations, even if we know some of what's being talked about, there's something profoundly, deeply important about having these conversations in love and in honesty and in vulnerability that I'm finding is if we do nothing else, and often we do nothing else, these conversations are important. But what I find is these conversations really help us to do something else or to not do something else, whichever of those is the more important of the two. Sometimes it's more important to not do something than to do something. So anyway, thanks for the opportunity to hear in conversation some more with these important topics.
Thank you. So wonderful. So I actually, because I know it's morning time where you are, I do want to start with something a little lighter, because there's a lot of depth to go into, and I just want to keep diving into the deep stuff. But we'll start with something a little lighter. What was the first thing that you did when you woke up this morning?
I went pee.
Okay.
And it was 2:45 and came back in, and I sat for 45 minutes and went back to bed, and then got up and did that same thing again. And then drank a few herbs that I needed to drink for a situation that's going on. And then my husband built a little fire and appreciated the chilliness, and had a cup of tea. And it's this decaf black tea that we put ginger and black cardamom in. So that was this morning. This is a little bit early, the interview, so
that's all there's been time for so far.
That's been what there's been time for.
Beautiful. Thank you. I thought it would just be fun for us to share something so human and so, relatable.
And I'll tell you, when, one of the, where we are here, where we spend part of the year, we don't have a bathroom inside, so it's an outhouse. And so you have to go outside to pee, and often we don't even pee in the outhouse, we'll just pee in the woods.
Yes.
So out there in the woods, peeing, and looking up at the sky, and it's just this incredible starry sky last night. This is when you're not feeling well and it's raining or cold, going out to pee in the middle of the night, not so fun. But it's this beautiful night. I'm feeling fine, thank God, knock on wood. And so going out, it's really a treat, because otherwise you're not as in touch with the sky. So then I looked up at Cassiopeia, the kind of W, and and I looked down below that to kind of below to the right is this little dimly shady, vaguey kind of light spot in the sky, and that's Andromeda. And a friend of mine had just told me, when you look at Andromeda, it's the only thing that you can see in the sky that's not part of our galaxy. It's a different galaxy. And that when you're seeing that light, it's coming from 1 million years ago. So the light that we're seeing from Andromeda is 1 million-year-old light. So
oh my gosh.
for a little pee in the woods, but it really was what happened this morning.
That's incredible. 1,000,000-year-old pee in the woods. I love that.
Yeah.
And I just have to say, on the topic of peeing in the woods, there's just something so grounding and earthy about peeing outside. It really is a soulful experience.
I prefer it.
Yeah.
I do prefer it.
Yeah.
But not when it's, I've also done that when I've not been feeling well in the middle of the night when it's cold and snowy or rainy or something like that. And, that that has its place. but in small doses.
Small doses at the right time, right place, right everything. Yeah. Perfect. Well, thank you for sharing that intimate experience with us. I think we can all relate to really good outdoor peas. I love it. So, yes, I am so excited to be talking to you today, to be talking about your message, which I feel the message I have gotten from your work, basically, and you can correct me on what your message is intended to be, but what I've really gotten from your work is that it's really a lot of the issues that women face, and men as well, with their health challenges and hormonal imbalances really is coming from life being out of balance, like we said, the cover of your book. And how one of the key things around that is this notion of really doing too much, of being not in touch with ourselves and our own pace and going beyond our pace. And I love the word that you introduced to me at the workshop of the adiman. So maybe you can just speak on the adiman and that concept of how easily we can be beyond, not aware of where our own natural state of balance is and be extending beyond that, and how that is such a key thing that is happening in this day and age.
Yeah, it's good. So, the Sanskrit word for health, swastha, is to be established in the self. Mm-hmm. And what is that? And I just so many times have and everybody knows that word and knows how profound that is. But so what does that mean to be established in the self? It's not being established in the mind. The mind has, this ability to display and utilize logic and worry and rumination and hanging out in the mind. That's not being situated in the self, but hanging out in often I think as women we'll say, oh, that really logic has its limitations, which is quite true. We've all made a decision based on logic and had it go south, and made a decision that was totally illogical, and it was one of the best things we ever did. So we understand there's a limit to the power of logic and the utility of logic. So we understand that. And so often as women we'll say, oh, well, that's not reliable, so I'm going to go into my heart. And what that often means for us is to go into our emotions. But let's look at that and be honest, that has some tremendous limitations as well. We're going on a roller coaster with that. So that's not really being situated in the self the way we're talking about. That's not particularly healthy to demonize either logic or emotions, or to put either one of them on a pedestal, has its limitations and isn't the whole story. It's not the honest story. Right? It's not that one is bad and the other is good. They both have their limitations. And so to kind of find that place interior, that place internally that is beneath those, and we could even visualize that as being down closer to the hara, kind of. Or we could visualize it being at the third eye. It almost doesn't matter, but wherever we feel that deeper stability that is there even in the face of fear, then that's what to connect with. That's what to be in line with. And I'll come around, God willing, and answer your question. But to set that up, understanding what we're looking for. It's not spiritual enlightenment even, although with enough interior focus and guidance, then God willing, that will happen for all of us someday. But this is something accessible to all of us. And it's that deep inner knowing that is patient and that is present even in the face of fear, that's present with courage. And, there's this story in the Ramayana, the part of the story in the Ramayana that I love so much, where Sita she's been kidnapped. She's under guard by these Rakshasas, these demons in Lanka, and she doesn't know whether or not Lord Rama is coming for her and if she's ever going to get saved. And Ravana is, threatening to keep her forever, and the demons want her to go enjoy her life with Ravana, but she's waiting for Rama, but she doesn't know if he's going to come. She doesn't even know if he knows that she's alive or where she is. And there's a couple full chapters going back and forth between her finding courage and losing hope, finding courage, losing hope to the point, at one point, she's losing hope so much that she's literally considering how to commit suicide. She's decided she's going to commit suicide, and she's going through the details of how she's going to do that. This is the goddess incarnate that is being talked about. So there's this line in there that I love so much where it says, even in the face of her grief, something like this, even in the face of her grief, she had unshakable faith in Rama. And this is so beautiful, because we sometimes think we either have fear or courage, fear or faith, but we can have faith even during these times of our lives that are traumatic, that are chaotic, that a little karmic crunch time, a karmic wave comes at us and flattens us, and we find despair and we find fear. Even in those times, there's this something underneath that, this witnessing, this stability that is there. And it doesn't always tell us what to do. Like, now you should do this. Your dharma is this, this. It's not that kind of chatty voice. It's just a quietness. And that, to align with that, provides us an awareness of where we are and what we are capable of at this moment. It's not a decision. I'm deciding to do this at this moment in my life. It's what is the right action? Is this the right action? And we can talk about this business of making choices about actions in a minute if you want, but aligning with that lets us know where we are and what we are capable of within maintaining harmony within our organisms, right? Then we go outside of that, and we reach outside of that, and we say, okay, this is what I'm capable of, and maybe all we're capable of at that moment is lying on the couch and resting. But we can't accept that, because that's a sign of weakness and illness, We always think rest is a big problem. Like, if we're hungry, we eat. If we're thirsty, we drink. If we go, if we're tired, we go, what's wrong? Cancer? We immediately go to, or somebody else might say, do I have Alzheimer's? Do I have heart disease? Whatever our worst fear is, we immediately will go there when we're just tired and we just need to rest. So maybe the right action for us in that moment, when we're aligning with that deeper awareness, is to rest. And if we push past that, that's when we're getting into trouble. We're outspending our resources, our physical resources, our spiritual resources, and often our financial resources. We're outspending our resources, and that gets us into trouble, like it does in any aspect of reality, whether it's economic or athletic or, whichever microcosm of reality that we look at. When we outspend our resources, we suffer for that. So the when we're doing that, this word that my dear friend Rose told me about, Rose from near Byron Bay.
Yes.
She had heard from her friend this word Ariman, and her friend defined this word as that force, that evil force that motivates us to go beyond that which we are capable. And when you look it up, and when I've looked it up in Wikipedia, it just says sort of an evil force, an evil spirit kind of thing. But I particularly love that definition. So whether or not that actually is the definition of Ariman, that's what we're talking about, is this kind of evil force that motivates us to go beyond that which we are capable of. And we can say, well, I'm capable of getting off the couch and moving forward and doing X, Y, Z. But that word capable, it's not just can we do that? It is that, am I capable of doing that while maintaining harmony in my organism? And that's the question. And one of the ways we get tricked here is many of us have such an identification process with the mind and the intellect. And the mind and the intellect can be very strong and can have a goal, can have an ambition, can have a destination in mind that we say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And we identify with that strength so much that we miss the clues that our body, which may be more delicate than our mind, is giving us. So this is a dichotomy that happens quite frequently, is that the mind is much stronger than the body. The body is be more delicate and not up to the task, but we don't respect the body. So we say, the body throws up some little warning signs saying, I'm in trouble, I've got a little gas or a little heartburn. And we say, shut up, that's not important. What's important is my goal and me getting to my destination. And the body says, okay, well, I'll do the best I can. But it starts to break down further. And then we need antacids. And we say, okay, well, I'll just take the antacids and I'll keep going. And I'm not going to rest. And the body says, okay, but then it starts bleeding from places. And then you're forced into a very difficult position physically, and forced to slow down. And many of us, that's been a tremendous gift, to be our bodies break down sufficiently that we are forced to slow down, because then even the strongest minded and strongest willed of us have to recognize at some point that what we're doing is unsustainable. And then we can go a different direction. Yeah,
that's so powerful, and such a wonderful way to view, experiencing the body breaking down is to see the light out of it. I love that, like see the lesson in the blessing, and well, it's an opportunity to rest and to actually reevaluate. It's like we have to get to that point of reevaluating whether you like it or not. The body will take you there. If you don't let yourself rest on the couch, so to speak, like if you don't take yourself to that space, the wisdom will take us there itself.
Yes, it will. But the thing to keep in mind, if we are, kind of awakening to our need for rest, is that it's not always that it tends to take women, probably men too, but I work a lot more with women, so that's what I'm more familiar with in terms of experience. For women, we have to get through often this tremendous embarrassment about rest, and it's not because of our husbands, and it's not because of society, although society is very oriented towards goals and being productive. And really applauds that, and even applauds, the stress that we experience around that. It's sort of a badge of honor. But it's not all of these things so much as it is our own self. And I think, talked about in that workshop that you went to, Lori, and this, it's like we have these hidden cameras on us, and we're the ones who put them there. And we're embarrassed to lie down. And it's just this tremendous courage that it takes to do that. I remember when I was 35, I had studied hormones long enough and worked with patients long enough to see that at 35, it's really important for a woman to start to learn how to rest and and really important for her to honor that inner knowing that she needs to rest. Otherwise, she starts to break down kind of more and more. And that was so clear to me that I gave my private practice away the month I turned 35 in exchange for being able to go and practice part-time. And so it was the first time in my life. I'd been working nights and going to school days, or working days and going to school nights for my whole, my whole adult life and into childhood practically. And so it was the first time that I opened up some time for myself. And truly lying on the couch was embarrassing. And, if someone would come in to the room, I would feel the need to pick up a book or a magazine and like I was doing something important or, valuable or productive. And I recognized this is pathology. I have to do this. I'm not embarrassed about it anymore. And I did. And it took about 6 months. I wasn't lying on the couch the whole time. I still had a private practice that I was going to part-time and teaching and writing. That was funny, but it didn't consume every waking minute. There were waking minutes that were dedicated to rest, and that was a new experience to get used to. And that, ironically, takes a tremendous amount of courage to do these things that we know we need to do.
Yeah, I love that. You just reminded me of a quote out of your book, which I was just going to see if I could find right now, about, you say, what really takes courage is to stop running, stop pushing, stop trying to please everyone, stop outspending our reserves, just stop and begin to live the life we really want to be living. That it actually, being busy doesn't take courage. That's what's normal. That's kind of facilitated really easily by our conditioning. And it's just, I think, especially during the pitta stage of life, so during our 30s, and this is something I want to go to next, is how the importance of during our middle stage of our life, where the fire and the dynamicness of life and creation of children and career and all of this is happening, just how there is the momentum at that time that has us, building and creating, but at the same time, how in Ayurveda it's so important to really look after yourself during that period of time for the next stage. So perhaps you can talk about that for us.
One of the beautiful things that Ayurveda gives us is this concept of the 4 stages of life. And it contextualizes what we're experiencing in our 30s, in that busy stage of life. It contextualizes that in a very meaningful way. So really briefly, in case listeners are not familiar with those stages, the first, if we consider a lifespan to be 100 years, just for ease of math, then each stage would be roughly 25 years. And the first 25 years is about, ideally, becoming acquainted with the laws of nature, and not learning dogma and the rules of what to do and what not to do, but the consequences of doing something according to the laws of nature. Then we can make an informed, our awareness is informed by this knowledge, and our actions are informed by this knowledge in the future. So getting good grounding in that. Then the second stage of life, the householder stage, the grahasta stage, is the gaining the building the profession, gaining the family, power, prestige, SUV, HDTV, PhD, all the initials. So we're accumulating. It's that busy stage of life where we're accumulating things that can't help but feed our identity of who we are. Back to that in a minute. Third stage, it roughly correlates with menopause for women, right? As the beginning. So this transition that's powerful between the second stage and the third stage. The third stage is half in the world and half out, where we are retreating more and more into the interior and out of the busy world of the 5 elements, because that's where we're going to have to return at death. And so it's an acknowledgement of that. It's starting voluntarily to pull our identification out of those things with which we've become tremendously identified. We can't help it. The identification process is super subtle and super tenacious. The second we open our eyes and look at something, we have adopted that thing into our identity to some tiny or greater degree, depending on the focus and the emotions and the receptivity and so forth. But we can't help but focus on our jobs, focus on our kids, focus on our partners, focus on our hobbies like yoga, right?
Yes.
Focus on these things to a great extent in that second stage of life, to recognize that in the third stage of life, and even in the second stage of life, as much as we can, to recognize this is a stage. This is not me. This is not the whole thing. This is a stage that I'm going through. And then, so in the third stage of life, we're starting to pull out of that, but we're coming into that and nourishing the younger people who are still in that stage with some of what we've learned when we were in that stage. So we're coming in and going out. And then the fourth stage is much more of a complete withdrawal from the busy 5 element world into the more interior world. So what I find very meaningful about this is that my guru used to say, don't start digging the well when you get thirsty. It's better to start digging the well before you're thirsty. So in the third, fourth stages of life, when the spiritual life, God willing, becomes much more rich and takes front center stage more, even in the first 2 stages of life, the first one where we're leading into this busy stage and this very busy stage, if we remember that doing a little bit of spiritual practice, and whether we believe in God or not doesn't matter so much as to, do we believe there's an interior part of this to which we can become aligned? And I think we can all find that. And the importance of aligning with that, even in the busy stages, taking the time, taking the space, pulling back the reins, and aligning with that to the extent that we can throughout that busy stage, throughout the 30s, prepares us for the next stage. And so that context lends life meaning. And it is a big change when we go into that third stage. And so preparing for that is important. If we're completely identified with our sexy looks, there's going to be a rude awakening. If we're completely identified with our very strong intellect and very strong, then there also may be a rude awakening, because there's a shift. Because this sharp intellect, in my experience, at least for women, but I think for everybody, softens, has a tendency to soften in the second stages of life. Look at the difference between smart and wise. We can see very smart people creating atom bombs. We can see very smart ideas creating real havoc. Whereas think of someone who really embodies wisdom, and we may not use the adjectives smart or sharp to describe them, but there's a wisdom and a softness there. And that's something that, to have both of those at one stage or another, or together synthesized in each stage to some degree, gives us a fuller experience of life and tends to allow us to be more honest with ourselves about, tends to allow us meaning in slowing down, in these times where we check in with ourselves interiorly, and the wisdom there, the understanding is, I need to be doing less, I need to rest. This idea of the value of softening and the value of slowness and slowing down, and the position of strength that will hold in the second two stages of life can start to allow us to receive that and build that in the second stage of life, I think.
I love that. That's so important, that message of, connecting with really a full perspective on not just racing through any particular phase, and also having acceptance of the natural energy of each phase, and keeping true to our balance is the core thing that can be throughout all of those phases as our compass, our guide.
And I think it's possible, I don't know, but I think it's possible that it's more important now than, it's becoming increasingly important for women to learn how to slow down as a medicine and a response to the ever-increasing acceleration of world externally.
Absolutely. I love that. Something relating to that I took away from, and taken away from all of your work that I've eaten up these last few months is, this came out through a conversation with my mum, who's in her mid-50s, so she's going through that stage, postmenopausal stage, and then I am in my 30s, so I'm in this stage, and I came up with this like a hashtag for us of this word yinning, through the concept of creating this yin. Like, I love the way that you said, if you're going to have yang activity, like a lot of outwardness and a lot of dynamism in life, you've got to understand that you need to have the yin. You've got to have that balance. And so both my mum and I have felt at times we've had a natural over-yanging thing and notice ourselves feeling tired or exhausted. And so I've created this thing where I'm like, let's start yinning, like winning with our yin, as a new perspective. And it really works. It's really like this shift of, restoring our energy and cultivating that and coming back into balance.
Yeah. Can I talk to that?
Please.
It's just all part of this conversation. It's not necessarily just about that, but one of the things I think we might have touched on as well in the workshop is, in this third stage of life, in the 30s, right, late 20s into 30s into 40s, mid 40s maybe, there's this, when we get introduced to this idea of yinning, we think, oh, this is wonderful. Okay, so now I'm going to have this, now I'm going to go on vacation and I'm going to have 2 weeks of yinning and it's going to be wonderful. And it kind of is. And you get that sense. And the thing is, when we've got like a 2-week vacation, we know we're going back into yanging at the end of the 2 weeks of yinning, and it makes that yinning really nourishing to us. It's like we're using the yinning to build up to support the yanging, that the yanging is the really important thing, but we'll yin enough that is enough so that we can support the yanging. And that role of yinning is to support the yanging. This is what I can't tell you how many times I did this, was to retreat in order to build up, in order to spend that on the yanging.
Yeah.
And in this, I'm 49. I'm going to turn 50 in several months, hence, and so it's been really interesting to see what this transition is about. And in the last few years, I've been trying to take a good chunk of time every summer, usually throughout the year. I yin as much as I need to in order to yang, but there's a bigger chunk of time that I've been taking in the last few years to yin for yin's sake, to yin for in's sake.
Nice.
To yin long enough. And so what I would find is I would come up to this place I spend 4 months a year-ish in, where I pee outside and stars. And, and I have done a lot of, there's certain kinds of work that I can do here that I can't do in my other part of my life, because I can really get into a routine with it that's not interrupted by travel to teach. And so I can get into a flow. But in the last couple of years, I've also taken on less projects to deal with in the summers during this time, and opened up more empty time. And one of the things that I found is I could pretty much schedule 2 weeks of depression every year, because I'd get here, settle in, and I would be disentangled and separated from those things which were very actively feeding my identity, even when I wasn't conscious of it. And it would be a process of letting that go and letting the emptiness, the resulting emptiness, be, not trying to fill that. And I get through that and work on my projects and get through. Last summer, I took a lot more time with less projects, and the emptiness got more profound. And I realized I'm opening up this time expecting Bible rays to come down and big cliffs to show up. And I realized, I'm importing the idea of big from the third stage of life, from the second stage of life into the third stage of life. Second stage of life, big, a big career and a big power and big money or big sex or whatever it is that is possessing us in the third stage of life, that then to just leave all of that mindset of big behind in the third stage of life, that takes a transition. And I realized, I'm just importing the idea of big into grace and emptiness. Like, I just assumed if I open the emptiness, this big grace will pour in. But it became little and empty. And there was some more sadness. And I realized I know how to do projects. I could do projects and fill that. Don't do that. Don't do that. I just felt intuitively and internally, trust the sadness, trust the emptiness, stay there. Just stay there. And that did shift, but I don't want to present this as if, if we stay with the depression, it'll shift into something important and better. That there's something in the emptiness that can stay with us, and that while we may not be comfortable with it, there's something of value there, and becoming comfortable with that emptiness may be of value as well. And so I just bring this in because of this two things. One is this tendency to yin in order to yang. The value of yin is to replenish so that we can go do more things. Whereas there's something, bring the yin up so that yin and yang are balanced, and then don't fill that with something to do. And, how can we be nothing? How can we be okay with doing nothing and being nothing? Can we get okay with that?
Yes. I love that. That's beautiful. And such a key indicator of, I think, a healing point, like a turning point in a healing journey of being authentically, courageously okay to be in that unknown and that void and in that nothingness, which I think every woman goes through. Well, definitely every woman goes through at different stages, and that there's a sweetness, there's like a nectar to that, that's our medicine if we can be in it, which, like what you're talking about, can be really uncomfortable.
Yeah, and I love that word that you just used, nectar. I think when we hear each other's experiences, our authentic experiences, there is a nectar in that.
Oh,
that we
totally.
That, don't you think?
Absolutely.
So on that note, I wonder if you'd be okay with, I have a request for anybody listening to this, and for you, Lorianne, and for your mother.
Yes.
I would really love hearing about whether we look at it as each decade of a woman's life, what she's going through, the inherent lessons she's going through, the inherent challenges, the inherent joys, the inherent hormonal balance or imbalances or conditions. Mm-hmm. What is unique to each decade or each stage of life? And what I would love to do is invite you and your mom and anybody who's listening to contact me through my website.
Great.
And share what your experience. Let me know what your decade is, and if I can share your experience with others. And if so, should I do it anonymously or with your first name or your last name or your initials, how you'd want to be identified?
Awesome.
And I can put I can put this up on my website. There's a place where I put it. I'll send you the link.
Awesome.
But
great.
I'm asking for this more these days because I think it's so valuable for us to hear each other's stories. And one last thing I want to mention. I know we're running out of time, but when I've done this, what I've found, there are exceptions, but what I've found so overwhelmingly is that after mid-50s, the older a woman gets, even if she has really challenging health issues or loses her spouse or something, that the older she gets, the happier she gets. And the overall reason that women give over and over is letting go of the to-do list, letting go of the expectations of self and action. But this letting go seems to be a tremendous component in happiness. And maybe if those of us who are younger, in our 50s, in our 40s, in our 30s, in our 20s, hear that, again, that contextualizes our lives. I love when 20-year-olds, 20-somethings are listening to conversations like this, because it's giving a taste of where we could be going and how to prepare for that, how to dig the well before we're thirsty.
Absolutely. That's so beautiful. And I can really see, I think in what you're saying, how there's a medicine in our authentic sharing with one another. I think part of what that medicine is, that I've definitely been experiencing through sharing with women in my life authentically about what I'm going through and different stages, is that I think it allows for a letting go. In the sharing, it lets us let go because we're heard, and we can, the mind can let go of something in the sharing. It's so healing. That letting go is the key. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. If I send you a link I wrote this, a short essay ish on just my experiences of being in my late 40s last summer. And at the bottom of that, you can read lots of different women's experiences. If I send you that link, can you share it with our listeners? Absolutely. I'll link it below this video. Absolutely.
Okay, good. Yeah. And if you want to share, just go to the contact page of my website, which is www.drclaudiawelch, just a C, no S, .com.
Awesome. I know we've got to wrap up very, very quickly soon. I feel like I could talk to you for hours, and it's just so pleasurable to talk to you about all these things. And very quickly, I guess, to wrap up and give a message, because there are women listening to this who I know are, at the beginning stages of their womanhood. They're women who are at the beginning of their mothering phase of life. There are women in their dynamic career building phase. There are women transitioning through that phase into their 40s and 50s, and then there are women in their 60s and 70s who are going to be listening to this. So I know it's a very large, broad scope. However, what is, I guess, the number one thing that you would, what's the number one thing that you would just want to tell every woman for them to take on board in relation to looking after their health and their energy, their life force? If there is just one thing, if you could condense it into, one message that you would really love every woman to have in their heart and just to take with them on their journey to navigate where they're at.
Well, the answer to that might be different at different times, but what comes to mind is fairly simple, is that we each need to nourish that internal connection, because that's the only way we know what right action is the medicine for this moment. What is the right action for this moment? And that we may feel that we can't contact that in the face of the fear and the chaos, but to remember that faith can coexist with the fear, that stability, that internal, that ability to connect inside can exist within doubt, can exist within the framework of our lives, no matter which stage of life, which decade, or what circumstance we find ourselves in.
Beautiful. Thank you. I love that. We all have that ability. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for your time, Claudia. It's been such a pleasure to speak to you today, and I'm so grateful that I can share this message with all of the women listening today, and I hope that everybody has been able to get some gems and some access. I think listening to you, Claudia, is therapeutic and healing and yinning and really encouraging and supportive of that connection to that inner self and to that core, which is our ultimate healing guide through life. So thank you for representing that, and I think activating that for everybody who gets to listen to you. I know that's definitely my experience. Every time I hear your voice on a recording or read your words in your book, it just feels like medicine to my spirit and to my heart and to my Ayurvedic nerdiness. And I am just so grateful. So, so grateful. Thank you so much. And is there...
Thank you for having me, for sharing this space, for continuing good conversation in good company. It means so much to me. Thank you.
Thank you. And is there something, I know, I love the way that you love to begin and end things with a beautiful ritual, and I think it's so nice that we center in that way. Is there something that you would like to end this with or offer?
How about just even 30 seconds of tapping into that?
Yes, that sounds beautiful.
Just talk about.
Awesome. Okay.
Well, thank you so, so much.
Thank you so much. Have a beautiful day. Thank you. And for everybody who wants to connect with your work, Claudia's book, Balance Your Hormones, Balance Your Life, is a Bible for women's health. I can't recommend it highly enough. And Where can people find you on and connect with you?
The website's probably the best way. So www.drclaudia, Claudia, Welch, WELCH.com.
Beautiful.
And I will love to hear from you. I can't always respond, but I do read everything, and with perhaps a little light editing, not to change people's words, but I often will put things in the link that I'll send you, Laurie, and that you can share with people.
Perfect.
So we can
have everything
continue
below.
the conversation in another way.
Yay! Thank you. Have a great day. Bye.